Hello, my name is Eli Gakuba. Today, I want to talk about I want to share a little bit about my experience with AI. Having been in the industry of AI for about 6 years now in Australia, I would like to share a little bit of few things that I found difficult for me when I was starting the journey. And I'm talking this because I'm kind of excited by seeing that many people I talk to in Africa now, they have woken up, and we can see that there are a lot of movement. The government are talking about AI. Everyone's talking about AI. So it's quite of an exciting time today. And then for people who really know, who have been involved into this process, I believe this is the right time to step in and try to give all the help they can. So with that said, one of the common things that I found happen usually is when you hear about AI, especially for engineers, they do what they used to do, which is go online, find materials and start learning. But AI is a different area. It's completely different from the normal programming. So you end up bogged down with a lot of resources coming from, especially from academic and researchers, and people really focusing attention on models rather than on the whole workflow involved in developing an AI application. So you will find yourself focusing on models, talking about models, and in the end, let me tell you frankly, you are just wasting your time. There are a lot of models, thousands of them, achieving different results. You don't really need to keep up with everything that comes. You don't have to know everything about computer vision, everything about natural language processing, everything about tabular models. You don't really have to. What you have to focus on as an engineer is first, make sure you really have sharp programming skills. So if you like to use Python, then make sure you really understand Python and can do something with Python. All right. The second thing you have to do is choose the area of expertise, because you can't know everything. So just focus on something. And the best thing to learn is focus on something that's related to your current employment. Right. So if you're in your current employment, you have text data, tabular data, then focus on model like gradient boosting, models that work with tabular data. If you think that you have in your current work images, then you work with computer vision. I mean, or if you have any other project involving video, images, and so on. But don't get your attention and everything, because in the end you will see that you just burn out. You will burn out. That's what happened. That's happened to everyone. You want to learn all those maths, all those statistics. In the end, you burn out and you're not able to move on. So focus on your programming skills. Choose one particular area of speciality that you want to focus on. And if it's tabular, focus on that. If it's computer vision, then do that. If natural language processing, then do that. All right. So that's my first advice. Secondly, AI is really not about models. So you will find that even though you spend all much of time talking and learning about models, it's not just models. It's not just that particular part when you build the models that's the most important. There is a bunch of other things that you have to do to get there. So number one is you really need to have data. When you build a model in real world, you're not going to be using those database that are already cleaned and provided for free for testing and for playing with them. No, in real life, you're going to have to deal with messy data. All right. So you have to do a lot of data engineering. You're not supposed really to do that if your job is building the model. There might be a data engineer. But what I found, when there is lack of resources, then you're probably going to do that as well. So get a lot of understanding about data. Most of the time it will be better if you have some sort like a data lake. Get your different data from different sources, merge them into one place, do some ETL on the data, and then get the data. Then decide, depending on the exercise you want to do on the data, decide how you label the data, because you're not going really to do much without labeling them, unless your exercises is unsupervised, which I doubt. So label your data. Then after that, you know exactly what your data is, and you have them and you've cleaned them. Now you start working on feature engineering. Work on the features of your data. Your model will be as good as your data. So if you are able to know, to understand your data, understand the distribution in your data, is there something that you can add that's missing that will add a value on your data with regard to the exercise that you want to accomplish? Then do that. Or do you want to mix some features and then get some new feature in your model? Then do that. So that's really something that you must spend much time on. People say that you almost spend 80% of your time looking at the data and then only a few percentage on the building the model. Then after that, choose the model, build the model, have some baseline testing or a metric that you want to use. And once you're happy with what you see, make sure you've kept your testing data around, test with the test data, happy with the model. Then it's time for deployment. And that's the hardest part. All right. So I found that people don't really focus on talking about what involves deployment, but deployment is the hardest part of any production model. So with deployment, you have now to think, I've got this model, but once it goes to production, it needs to deal with live data. What should I do? So how do you set up continuous? So you need to do the normal continuous development, continuous integration, continuous deployment, which is basically deploying your code and getting them running on a server for exploitation. But on top of that, because you're running a machine learning, then you need also to decide on what to do with continuous training. All right, the model that you put there, it needs to continuously train without your assistant. So now, how do you do that? There are a lot of techniques. Focus on that because it's going to take your time. Once you have that continuous training, then you need to decide when is the model really a retrained model, when is it good to be redeployed. Have some rules in place. Second, your model could be running today properly, but then after a few months or a few weeks, then it start returning some bizarre predictions. Then you need to find out what's really happening. Is the data drifting or is it the model drifting? Given that you're receiving more data, do you think the distribution of your data is significantly changing? So you have to really have all that in place and being able to identify when to retrain your model when it's not working properly. So continuous MLOps is really the hardest part of anything I've ever seen. It's really hard, involves a lot of work, involves a lot of technologies, and no wonder that if you're doing MLOps, you probably paid high. So that's my advice regarding the workflow. Now, I'm thinking also about the different things involved into that workflow, like different people involved. So I talked about a data engineer. That need to be a specific person focusing on data engineering. I talked about feature engineering and building a model. That's usually a work of a data scientist. So you will find most of data scientists are PhD students, those who have been really involved into research, people who are really patient and know how to frame a hypothesis and spend much time thinking about different area of proving the hypothesis. So those are data scientists. And then there is MLOps engineers or ML engineers. Those are people who will now take that model, rebuild the code in a way the model can be put online and being able to scale and being able to audit the model and do all other things involved in DevOps. So that's you have then as an engineer, you have to see where do you fit. Are you a data engineer? Are you a data scientist? Or maybe you are MLOps. So you have really to make your mind, and then depending on what you think you are, then focus on that. All right. My last point is regarding managers or any decision maker. So if you are a decision maker or a manager, you're probably going through hard time thinking, how do you start? How do you start an AI project? Because it's completely different from anything you know. So this is the advice. You just keep it simple. Don't get stressed. Don't think like you are running against the time. Take your time to think about what you want to achieve with AI. The common goal for AI is to optimize what you do. So by optimizing, could be you optimize the service you provide to your customers, or it could be also you optimizing your internal activities, like human resources. Do you need a chatbot for helping people interacting with your human resources department? Or do you need a chatbot to help with support, for instance, for employees, or a bot to, to ask any other support they need? Or maybe do you want to optimize your expenses that you spend on employees? Then gather data about your employees and build some models which will give you a lot of insight about the different expenses you do. Maybe from that you take some other decisions. Now, in terms of the services you provide to the customer, there are a lot of things you have to think about. The natural one that comes to many people who are just started the journey, it's a chatbot. Well, a chatbot is the least one. It will really add one more channel for communication between you and the customer. But there are a lot other cool stuff that you can think about. Let's say think about segmentation. How do you acquire all the data of your customers? Try to create a 360 views of your customer. Then, try to probably segment a customer, create some sort of segmentation, understand each cluster where the customer falls in, what makes unique for this cluster, what kind of things that really identify or represent the cluster. Is it the age of the members of the cluster? Is it the places where they live? Is it the income that they make? And so on. As the more you understand your different customers and comparing with how much income they bring to your company, you're probably going to have better policies on how you approach them during the marketing and even during the solutions or offers that you provide. So that's one thing you can do. There are a lot of other things that you can do. You can build the prediction models if there is a reason to do that. You may be able to do like a lifetime value and so on. So really, just pick one of the things that you want to do in your current activities that you do at your job. Pick one thing that you want to optimize, and then think about how you acquire the data for that particular thing. Build a data lake for that. Let the data engineers do their work and bring all those data. Label them if necessary. Start building those models and get deployed. The first model will likely be not the best one, but at least it will have put you on the feet, and then you will start from there evolving and doing more cool stuff. So that's my advice for managers. Start slowly, get help whenever needed. There are people who have been involved. Get help. It's always good to get help. So with that said, this was my advice. I haven't really prepared anything. It was coming from, I was talking my mind. One thing maybe I should have mentioned at the beginning, I'm the founder of Facile AI, and what we do, we help organizations to start this journey by providing them advices, but also helping them to define their strategies, AI strategies, data strategies, but also acquiring, recruiting for you, and even giving appropriate training to your staff so that you can start the journey with all the equipment that you need. So talk to Facile AI. The website is facileai.com, and then you'll get all the help that you need on time. I hope this will help you, and stay well.